The Verify team is here to stick with the facts, and that's especially important when we're talking about politics. Like every election year, there's been a lot of talk about Social Security online. People saying things like this: President Trump's proposal to eliminate payroll taxes would deplete the Social Security Retirement Trust Fund by 2023, attributing this claim to the Social Security Administration. So let's verify. Did the SSA really say this about Trump's tax plan? Here are our sources. Howell Jackson from Harvard Law School, this letter from the chief actuary of the SSA, a spokesperson from the Trump campaign, and comments from President Trump himself. You may recall it was back on August 8th when President Trump signed that executive order deferring the payroll tax from September 1st through the end of the year. This tax, collected from our paychecks, goes towards the Social Security Trust Fund. But it was something that President Trump said shortly after signing that executive order that generated concerns.
After I hopefully get elected, we'll be terminating the payroll tax.
Comments like these prompted these 4 Senate Democrats to request an analysis from the Social Security Administration about what would happen if the payroll tax was eliminated. Stephen Goss, the chief actuary for the SSA, sent back this letter, examining a purely hypothetical proposal where the payroll tax was eliminated without any replacement funding, confirming that the reserves would, quote, become permanently depleted by the middle of calendar year 2023. But as we mentioned, this report was hypothetical, not based off of any actual plan that was put forward by the Trump administration. Also, it doesn't account for any replacement funding. In that same press conference, Trump said that any cuts to the payroll tax would be replaced by funding from the general fund. Plus, the White House has tried to clarify Trump's comments since. Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany told reporters on August 13th that the president was talking about forgiving the deferred payments, not cutting the tax entirely. So while the SSA chief actuary did say that if the payroll tax is eliminated, Social Security would be depleted by 2023, there's important context. President Trump hasn't actually released an official plan, so we don't know if it would resemble what was analyzed by the SSA. With your Verify, this is Evan Kozlov.